Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's UK Week Live Q&A session. My name is Jenna Hartzell, and I am the British Council's Education Manager in the US. Today's session will focus on everything related to undergraduate and postgraduate opportunities in the UK. Whether you're thinking about applying or you already know which course you would like to attend, we hope this live event will give you an overview of how to prepare for your studies in the UK. We're joined today by Judith Cook, Regional Manager from Liverpool John Moores University, and Sam Micklewright, Regional Manager from UWE Bristol, and Peter Brimstone, International Officer from Queen's University Belfast, who will all be answering questions about undergraduate and postgraduate degrees in the UK. Hi, Judith, Sam, and Peter.
Hello.
Thanks for being with us today. For all of you watching, make sure to type in your questions in the comments and we'll answer as many as we can get through. To start off, please feel free to say hello and let us know where you're joining us from. To kick off our questions, I first wanted to ask each of our representatives to tell us a little bit about your university and where it's located within the UK. Sam, could we go ahead and start with you?
Yeah, sure. So I represent the University of the West of England, which, as the name implies, we are based in the West of England. Our short name is UE Bristol, and we are based in the city of Bristol. Bristol is quite a large city, it's about 500,000 people, and we're sort of 2 hours away from London, an hour away from Cardiff and Wales, 2 hours away from Birmingham, quite well connected, and about an hour and a half away from the coast as well. So it's a nice part of England. And just briefly about the university, we have 3 campuses, 30,000 students, of which around 15% are international. And we're ranked 21st in the UK out of 121 universities in the Guardian rankings.
Great, thank you. And Peter, could we go to you to tell us a little bit about your institution and where it's located within the UK?
Absolutely. So I work for Queen's University Belfast. We are perhaps unsurprisingly located in Belfast, which is the capital city of Northern Ireland. So we are quite unique in the UK in that we are kind of politically, economically part of the UK, but physically, geographically, we're on the island of Ireland. We're probably about an hour's flight from London, if that's your point of reference, but 90 minutes drive up from Dublin as well. The university is quite a large university, about 25,000 students. Of those, about 3,000 are international, with about 300 coming from the US and Canada. We run programs at undergraduate and postgraduate level, over 200 programs. We're ranked in the world's top 200 universities, so pretty well ranked, and 15 subject areas individually in the top 200 as well. So pretty good standard of education, fantastic quality of life in Northern Ireland, and that is us.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think Judith might have her camera frozen, so we'll see when she comes back on, she can tell us a little bit about her institution as well. Hi, Alex in the chat. Thanks for dropping by, and everyone in the audience, please do feel free to say hello. Let us know where you're joining from, and if you have any questions throughout the session about undergraduate and postgraduate degrees in the UK, do let us know. We'll start with some questions that we prepared for the reps, and I wanted to first ask, starting with you, Peter, when students are looking into researching bachelor's degree programs, how should they go about researching their options to make sure they're picking the right degree for them?
Good question. So I guess one thing to understand about UK university education is that for the most part, over here, we run 3-year undergraduate degrees. So what that actually means is when you're applying to come and study in the UK, Scotland is a little bit different, but they're a special case. We can touch on them maybe later. You need to think about a subject that you're applying to. So whether you're applying for an undergraduate or a postgraduate degree, you are thinking about a specific major to apply to, and that really will dictate to a large part where you might want to go to university. There are a huge amount of resources. There are some key league tables which are helpful to give you an idea of where to start. So one that Sam mentioned was the Guardian League table. There are others like the Times Higher or the QS World University rankings. Those are fantastic, and what I would say is keep this subject in mind, because all of these league tables will give you kind of rankings on subject strength, and that's really important. Because you could have a university that is very well ranked overall, but actually for your subject, it might be a university that you wouldn't have thought of originally is maybe best or higher ranked for that subject. So first thing to do, think about the subject. If you if you're even a step before that and you think, I don't even know where to start subject wise, the main resource for UK universities is UCAS, which is the University and College Admissions Service. And they are just on ucas.com, ucas.com, and they have a full list of programs. It's a really good way to help you start thinking about what major you might be interested in. And from there, you can branch out towards looking at individual universities.
Thank you. That's great advice. I see we have Judith has joined us. Hi, Judith.
Hi.
So I wanted to circle back to make sure you had a chance to tell everyone a little bit about your institution and where it's located within the UK.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. Yes, I'll be very brief so we can talk about the business we all want to hear. But yeah, Liverpool John Moores is unsurprisingly based in Liverpool in northwest England. We are a modern university and we have around about 20,000 students, more or less, on a mixture of undergraduate, postgraduate taught and postgraduate research programs. We have 5 different faculties. I would say that the most popular courses that we tend to have for US students would be those around forensics. So we have forensic sciences, forensic psychology, and then forensic anthropology. So sciences is what people tend to look at. The program area that we are probably best known for globally is sports science. So we're in the top 10 in the world for sports science. And you will find that a fair number of the major leagues soccer teams in the US will have sports scientists from John Moores working for them. It's a great city. It's a coastal city. It's a tourist city. So there's lots of things to do all year round. COVID allowing, obviously, it's not quite as exciting right now as it would normally be. But yeah, it's a lovely place to live and study, very friendly city.
That sounds great. Thank you. So going back to some of our questions we have for the representatives, Sam, I wanted to ask you to touch more on the length of typical degrees in the UK. So I know Peter mentioned about undergraduate degrees typically being 3 years in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Could you tell us a little bit more about the average length of an undergraduate degree and a master's degree in the UK?
Sure. So in the UK, the standard undergraduate degree is 3 years. However, there are some add-ons you might want to consider. So a large majority of universities now in the UK offer a thing called a sandwich year, or it might be called a placement year. That is where you add a 1-year internship, which depending on the university or subject, that could be a paid internship where you work within industry, either in the local area or nationally or internationally within your subject area you're studying. And traditionally, that would be in between the 2nd and 3rd year of study. So you would study years 1, 2, do your internship for a year, and then come back for your 4th year, but your 3rd year of academic study. If you don't want to do the placement year or the sandwich year, you just do the standard 3-year course. And then for students that maybe have missed the entry requirements by, I don't know, a couple of points on their SATs, or they haven't got the correct GPA, a lot of universities now offer foundation courses. That's where you change your 3-year degree into a 4-year degree, but you do an additional year before you start the degree, basically. So it's a 4-year degree for students that have slightly lower entry requirements. But the standard is 3 years. And for undergraduate, you'll find that the majority of universities have a September start date for their undergrad degrees. For graduate programs, it's the large majority are a 1-year program, and the majority will start in September or January, but you'll find that some universities might offer additional start dates for graduate programs, maybe April, March, May, that sort of time, but the majority will start September or January.
Fantastic, thank you. And Judith, I see we have a question in the chat around English language tests that are accepted by UK institutions. I wondered if you could tell us how international students can find out if they're required to take an English language test before applying to university, and then which tests are typically accepted?
Okay, well, yes, it depends on which country you're from, really, or where your previous education has been sometimes. But a number of countries around the world, students will require some sort of English test. And the reason why we need that is because even a British student has to have a GCSE English in order to get into university. So it's really to make sure that everybody has the level of English required to be able to be successful. And actually, it will depend on your university. Different universities might have different ways of testing. The most popular UK test for English is IELTS, actually, which is run by the British Council. And actually, that's designed for the UK education system, so it's really the best one for anybody who isn't a native English speaker. There may be a range of other courses that people will accept. I noticed there was something about Duolingo there. That varies from institution to institution, whether or not they accept it. We don't currently accept that in my institution, but some institutions may. It depends on the institution, really. But yes, if you're a US national and you've been brought up in the US, then you wouldn't normally need to take a specific English test. In my university, we'd be looking at your transcript to see the evidence that you have the relevant English language qualification, similar to a level 2 or GCSE English for the British students.
Great. Thank you, Judith. And thank you for the question in the chat. We want to make sure. Sorry. Mia, thumbs up. Co-host, if you can hear me. Thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you, Judith, for that reply. And thank you for the questions in the chat. Please do feel free to drop any more questions in the chat as we go on. So each of you told us a little bit about your institutions earlier, and I think touched on some of the subjects that are popular at your institutions, but I was hoping we could go around and hear a little bit more about what makes studying at each of your institutions a unique experience for international students, and what subjects tend to be popular for US students at your institution. Sam, could we start with you again on this one?
Yeah. I would actually say for US students, the subject area at our university is varied. There is no one singular popular subject for US students. If you were asking me the same question about other nationalities, I could pinpoint a subject, but I find our US students will cover all 4 of our faculties, all subject areas at all levels. However, if they were looking for a particular subject, I would recommend things like our business, our aerospace engineering, our architecture, things like nursing, optometry, physiotherapy. But one thing I would recommend students to look at, and is touching on what was mentioned earlier, is when you're researching a course, don't just look at the overall ranking or the subject ranking, also look at student satisfaction rates. So there's a thing called the National Student Survey in the UK, or for short, the NSS. And that is a survey that is sent out to students at university, which they respond about how did they enjoy their teaching, how were the facilities, could they approach their lecturer, lots of different questions. And then that gives a satisfaction score for each subject at each university. So I'd definitely recommend looking at the National Student Survey when you're looking at subject areas at a university in the UK.
Great, thanks. Judith, can we go to you next to tell us, you told us a little bit about which subjects are popular, but if you could give us a little bit more information and about why studying at Liverpool John Moores is a unique experience for international students.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I did talk a little bit about it before because I do get carried away talking. But yes, our main programs, which are most popular for US students, I talked about the forensics and sports sciences and so on, psychology. Over half of our US students are doing sciences. But then, of course, things like creative arts are really, really popular. I think because the city itself is a very creative city. So, a lot of our programs are linked to the local economy. So our students do find that they are really, really great environments for them to actually learn in, because they can connect a lot of their learning to what's going on in the city around them. So things like, tourism. It's a big tourist city, as I mentioned before. So we do have an events degree. So students are very interested in those sort of things. The film programs that we have, because we obviously are the most filmed city outside of London, because we have a film office. So there's things like that within our degree programs, which mean that students have quite a unique experience because they can generally relate to what they're learning to what's going on in the environment around them. And we do have connections with universities so that they with businesses, the university has connected with businesses so that we can then help students try and get placements with those kind of industries. And the other thing, which is hugely popular, is things like cosmetic science, because Liverpool is a big pharmaceutical industry as well in the city. So students can get access to placements with those sort of companies. And I've probably talked enough. I'll stop at that. Let somebody else have a chance.
No, thank you, Drew. Those sound like some great opportunities for students. And Peter, can we go to you to hear a little bit about what makes studying at Queen's University Belfast unique for international students, and what subjects are popular with international students?
I mean, fantastic question about what makes us unique. I think the thing with Belfast is its point that Judith touched on is kind of tying the university to the place and actually thinking, why would I go to this particular place to study that particular subject? And some of that might be around strength, but what you will find, as Judith mentioned, is you get your strengths from the community that you're part of, the city that you might be part of. With us, and really what makes Belfast unique is, to be honest, it's the political environment. We have had an interesting political history in this part of the world, and that is ongoing, and that is a lived experience. If a student is interested in politics, if they're interested in international relations, Northern Ireland has been the front line of a lot of this stuff for a long time, and currently is. You look at things like Brexit, you look at things like how the UK handles a pandemic situation and regional governments and all this kind of thing. And if you're interested in politics, Belfast is the live environment for that. And I would genuinely say, not just unique to the UK, but unique probably anywhere in the world, the political environment in Northern Ireland and the access that students have. And that is really important, because you come and you sit in a classroom and you want to talk to academics, but what you really want to do is get out and start talking to real people. If you're into something like politics and international relations, politics is people, and you want to get out and work with these communities and engage with those communities. And Queen's, we've been around for 175 years. We are part of the fabric of the city and of the country of Northern Ireland. So that the access into those communities is unrivaled. Those are our most popular routes for US students. I would say probably 50–60% of our students go into politics and international relations. We have wonderful direct entry medicine and law programs and all this, but you want really unique politics, conflict studies, all of that good stuff.
Great. And those also sound like some incredible opportunities for students. And Sam, thanks for sharing earlier about the National Student Satisfaction Survey and how students can take that into account when they're searching for a university. Could you tell us a little bit more about how studying at UWE Bristol is a unique experience for international students?
Yeah. So, like what Judith said, we've got really strong links to certain industries. So we have Airbus based, maybe I think it's a mile away from the campus. And for anyone that doesn't know what Airbus is, they create a lot of planes. Basically, it's either Airbus or Boeing. They're the two main plane makers in the world. So a large majority of our engineering students will actually do hands-on experience at Airbus down the road. And likewise, we have journalists who will go and do experience at the B studio in the middle of Bristol. But I would definitely say if a students want a really, really unique course, I would definitely recommend looking at our graduate wildlife filmmaking. Quite a large majority of professional filmmakers have gone from that course, basically. And you spend a large amount of time out in the field, basically filming stuff. Very competitive, though, but very unique at the same time.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. Thanks for sharing. So we know a big question on students' minds when they're looking to study abroad in another country is how they will fund their studies. And so I wondered if we could go to each of you and hear about if you offer scholarship opportunities to international students, and what advice you might have for students looking at options for funding their studies in the UK. Peter, could we start with you with this question? And then I'll go to Judith and then to Sam.
Absolutely. So what you will find with the majority of UK universities is that we do have scholarships for international students. What you will also find, though, is that they tend to be partial scholarships. We don't do things like kind of full international financial aid, and there's a very good reason for that. We are all public institutions in this part of the world, so we're publicly funded universities, which means that essentially we're just charging what the price is of delivering. But of course, we want to make our education accessible. We do have a range of international scholarships. They will typically be anywhere between sort of 10 and 20% of your tuition fees, but there will be some competitive scholarships as well. Things like merit-based scholarships for students with particularly high grades. We have a very good package of athletic scholarships at Queen's for talented student athletes. But for students in the US in particular, it's worth noting that you can access US federal loans to study at Queen's and at plenty of other UK universities. So students can use FAFSA in the same way that they would to study in the US. So that's not a barrier. If you are looking at loan funding, you can still do that and come to the UK. Of course, probably the biggest scholarship of all is the fact that it's only 3 years instead of 4. So there's 1 year free as a good offer.
Great, thank you, Peter. And going to you, Judith, do you have anything to add in terms of scholarship opportunities for international students from Liverpool John Moores?
I'd echo what Peter was saying, really, which is that the vast majority of scholarships tend to be a percentage of your fees rather than it being full scholarships. At Liverpool John Moores University, we do have a sports scholarship, but it's very different from a US sports scholarship. But it tends to be focused around the support that you would get from our head of elite sport. It tends to be geared towards students who are currently competing internationally or at least at a national level. They're representing their country usually. So we've had a few people who we've supported while they've been training and doing, going to the Olympics and so on. But the point about our scholarship is that it's very much focused on the sports science support that you will get to improve your marginal gains, to make sure that you are, performing at the peak of your ability, really. And then for us to accommodate your academics around that, so that we have mentors and so on that will support people, rather than it being like a sports scholarship in the US where you may get a huge amount of money, to do that. We tend to focus on using the money that we have for sports scholars on supporting their development as a sporting athlete, if you like. And again, like most other universities in the UK, we accept FAFSA, GI bills, things like that. It's actually there's a lot of ways in which US students can fund their studies in the UK at most universities.
Great, thank you. And going to you, Sam, do you have anything to add for scholarships that UWE Bristol offers for international students?
Yeah, nothing really to add. What I would say is that you can find slightly larger scholarships at a graduate level, I'd find, for most universities in the UK. So, for example, at UE Bristol, at undergrad, the biggest discount we'd give at undergrad is maybe £3,000 off each year's tuition fee. But at graduate level, we could give maybe a 50% discount, and that's based on your academic merit. You might find that other UK universities follow a similar model where graduate level you'll find larger scholarships. But echoing my two colleagues, you'll never find a full ride. That's quite a rare thing in the UK. Regarding our sports scholarship, it's a very similar thing. We offer a 30% discount every single year of tuition. And we're actually quite happy that even in a COVID year, it's a bit of an odd one. We recruited, I think it was 13 Americans on sports scholarships. September just gone, even though there's no sports happening. But we've still allowed them to keep the discount, even though they're not playing sports. So we know it's not their fault they're not playing sports. But we have American football, basketball, soccer, and then all the sports in between. So We're actually really well known for squash. It's one of our main sports, maybe squash and American football. And one thing I would say is not about scholarships, but regarding funding, is that when you are in the UK, you can work part-time on your visa. So when you're in term time study on your visa, apologies, I'm questioning my knowledge here. I think it's 15 to 20 hours per week, I think you can work. Yeah, 20. Yeah. And then when you're on your school holiday time, so obviously still in the UK, you can work 40 hours per week. You're not going to be able to pay your tuition fee with that money, but you will be able to pay, food, drink, going out, maybe a contribution to your rent. But one good thing about studying in the UK at the moment is that you can access the post-work study visa when you graduate. So you could then work 2 years full-time in the UK after graduation.
Jenna, do you mind if I add a little bit to that, which I think is quite pertinent to the US, which is unlike students studying at US universities, international students can work off campus in the UK as well. So they're not limited to just on campus working. So it gives them a few more opportunities, I think, while they're studying.
Fantastic. Thank you. So speaking about work opportunities, I know we get a lot of questions too about post-study work opportunities for international students in the UK. Peter, could you tell us a little bit about what post-work study opportunities are available?
Yeah, absolutely. So any student who's coming to the UK on a student visa, so that's anyone who's not holding a UK or Irish passport, will be eligible when they graduate for something called the graduate visa route. And the graduate visa route essentially gives all international students the option to remain in the United Kingdom for 2 years to seek employment, which is a fantastic opportunity. So that's if you have an undergraduate degree or a graduate degree, it gives you that chance. It's 2 years without the pressure of having to immediately find a job when you graduate, and there's no restrictions on what sort of job you can seek. If you are successful in obtaining a job within those 2 years, you can then apply for an extended visa to stay in the country. And we would love students to come. And again, we talk about choosing a program and choosing a program relevant to the place. If there's a particular industry you want to work in, maybe looking at where those industries are strong. In the UK, if you study there, your university will help you with connections and trying to find a graduate job. And then you never know, you might enjoy it so much you choose to stick around for a while, which plenty of our international students do.
Great. And we do have a question in the chat around minimum tuition fees. And since we were just talking about funding, I wondered if we could cover what, minimum to average tuition fees look like for international students. Judith, could you take that question for us?
Sure. Yeah, at my university, we just have two different types of tuition fee, which is those courses which are lab-based and those which are non-lab-based. So the tuition fee ranges currently from £15,100 to £16,100. There's no other differences apart from that, and that's the same for postgrad and undergrad per year. Obviously, they're reduced by the application of scholarships, but those are the sort of headline figures that you would be paying for your tuition. I think one thing that students need to think about as well is how expensive is the city where they're studying. And I know that Liverpool, along with Belfast and Bristol, the guys will agree, are a lot more cost effective than some parts of the UK to live in.
Great, thank you. Those are good considerations for students to take into account. So going to another question for our representatives. Peter, you've talked a little bit about the opportunities for students studying in Northern Ireland. Could you tell us a little bit more about the differences of studying in the different nations in the UK? Maybe starting with what those 4 nations are.
Yeah, sure. Quick geography lesson then. The United Kingdom is made up of 4 separate nations. So England is the obvious one, but also Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. They are, we are 4 nations and also 1 nation. We have a lot in similar, but there are a lot of little regional differences. And I'm sure my colleagues from proud parts of England would argue there are regional differences within England as well. But just, I guess, in practical terms, The one major difference to be aware of is with Scotland, you have a 4-year degree programme, which is much more similar to the US, whereas Northern Ireland, Wales and England have 3-year degree programmes. Other than that, we share a lot of cultural heritage, of course. Northern Ireland, I will always claim is special because we're also part of Ireland and we kind of have this best of both worlds, but I think every part of the country claims it's special. But it is just worth bearing in mind. There are different parts of the UK you can live in. You know, there is a tendency to think immediately of London and that kind of big city life. And for some students, that is fantastic. They want to live in a big metropolitan city. Great, London is a fantastic option for that. You might actually want a smaller city. That could be one of the regional capitals like Edinburgh, Belfast, Cardiff, or one of the regional cities like Bristol or Liverpool, Newcastle, York, you name it. There are fantastic little places. There are also campus universities out in the countryside. So it's really just thinking about that quality of life. If you're the type of person who maybe wants somewhere a little bit more outdoorsy, somewhere on the coast, you can think beyond London. So yes, some differences within the 4 regions, and the main practical difference, as I said, is the 4-year programme in Scotland versus the 3-year programme everywhere else. So yes, but I defer to the English on that.
Yeah. I would just like to say, although with 4 nations, for example, I could get in my car now and be in Wales within 40 minutes. So it's not like it's apart from Belfast where it will be a flight or a ferry, the majority of the time it's just a drive over the border, and you won't normally see much difference.
That's great. Thank you. So we have a few more questions to ask our representatives, and please do ask us any questions you have in the chat in our remaining time. Judith, going to you, we know students, particularly in the US, have been facing the cancellation or not being able to access standardized tests such as the SAT subject tests. Do you have advice for students who are worried about having access to taking a standardized test, and how UK universities are adapting to that?
Thanks, Jenna. Yeah, I think it's a really important point because I know a lot of students have been really worried, and I think I must have spent half of the last month talking to students who are concerned about the fact that their SATs are being cancelled. One of the issues, I guess, is that students do need to bear in mind that the UK, as we said, the UK degree is a 3-year degree rather than 4 years. And so that generally most universities are looking for some evidence that somebody has a higher level than high school diploma in a particular subject. And that will be the minimum. So if you have SAT tests that were on your offer, but and you need to think about what am I going to do now because I can't take my SATs, then the first thing I'd say is talk to your university that you're applying to. Okay, so you may find that they are being more flexible this year. They may have other ways that they can assess your abilities. There might be something that they can do, and the best thing you can do is talk to them. I know at Liverpool John Moores University, we have adopted what we call the test flexible approach. And that is not test optional, unfortunately, because of the difference in the education systems. But it does mean that in line with many other universities, we're doing our best to support students at this time. And you might find if you have a chat to your university that they will be able to help you in some way to get over this obstacle. There's nothing that beats having a chat to the university to find out, is there something they can do to help, really, rather than just worrying about it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's really great advice to get in touch with the international office at the universities you're interested in or have applied to, and they're there to support you. So we have time for a couple more questions for our representatives. Sam, I know a big question on students' mind when they're moving to another country to study is also what accommodation will look like for them.
Yep.
And I know that ranges from university to university, but could you share with us a little bit about what student accommodation looks like at UWE Bristol?
Yeah, so at UWE Bristol and I would say a large majority of the UK, the majority of student rooms are ensuite single bedrooms. I know in the US you might be having dorm rooms where you're sharing a room, but for whatever reason in the UK you normally have your own bedroom and then either a shared bathroom or an ensuite bathroom, but normally a private bedroom. At UWE Bristol, we have accommodation on and off campus, which is both university managed, and we will guarantee you university managed accommodation if you apply by a certain deadline, which is normally in June. So traditionally, you would apply academically anywhere from November up to, say, May time, and then in June you'd apply for accommodation, or before that. And then in July, we would let you know which accommodation you've been assigned. But if you hit the deadline, you'll be guaranteed accommodation. And I don't know about Belfast and Liverpool John Moores, but a large majority of UK universities will offer that guaranteed accommodation if you hit a deadline. I'm not sure if my colleagues want to confirm or, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and then if you want to live off campus, if you're maybe a graduate student, I would recommend a first-year undergrad student to live on campus, and then you'll find that a lot of students will move off campus for your second and third year. And although you can technically stay on campus for your second and third year of undergraduate, I guarantee all your friends will move off campus. So you might want to follow them off campus. It's sort of, I think it's a bit of a way of life in the UK. You do your first year on campus, and then you move off campus for your remaining years. A lot of our graduate students will just go straight away to off campus, and they might be getting a private studio or one bedroom flat, or they might be getting a house share where they rent one bedroom out of a house. And we have plenty of different websites in the UK that can help you find accommodation that, or alternatively, each university will have their own accommodation team as well that will assist you in finding that accommodation.
Great, thank you. And as we're winding down our chat today, Peter, could you share with us any websites or other resources you would recommend where students can go to learn more about UK universities and support them in their university search?
I mean, like, the first website they should go to is the Queen's University Belfast website, obviously. That is the oracle of knowledge. I think first stopping point, if you don't really know anything about the UK, if you're thinking, oh, sounds like it might be a good idea, how do I start thinking about a major? The UCAS website, so that's ucas.com. Somebody might be kind enough to pop that in the chat for me. UCAS website is a fantastic resource. It'll give you sort of that start of the journey of how you start to pick a subject area. Beyond that, social media channels obviously are fantastic. Kind of informal way to engage with universities. And maybe I'll throw a rogue one out there, the Student Room, which is a UK forum, and that is for student-to-student connection. So that's peer-to-peer connection for students to just talk to each other. There are university reps on there as well, which is just a great way where you can ask questions informally. It's a big internet forum. But yeah, just hit Googling and start searching UK universities and the things you're passionate about. Start with the things you're interested in and go from there.
Great, thank you. Well, I want to thank each of you, Judith, Peter, and Sam, for joining us today and for sharing with us about a range of topics, giving us your top tips on the student search process. And I think also what I'm coming away with is how there really is a best fit for every student who's looking to study in the UK. There's a range of places where you can study, a range of subjects, and wherever you go, you're within close distance to the rest of the UK to explore as well. So in closing, I wanted to go around to each of you and ask you to tell us how people can get in touch with you if they want to learn more, and also where they can go to find out more about your university. So if we can start with Judith, then we'll go to Sam, and then close with Peter.
Okay, yeah. So our website is the easiest way to contact us. We do have our international team on a chat function there as well, which is Liverpool John Moores University is LJMU. If you type in LJMU into Google, you'll find our website. And we also have a YouTube channel on YouTube as well, where you put in LJMU and you'll get a load of videos.
Great, thank you. And Sam, can we go to you about how our audience can get in touch with you and how they can find out more about UWE Bristol?
Yeah, once again, first thing is go straight to the website. So it's www.uwe.ac.uk, UE spelled UWE. Alternatively, if you just Google UWE Bristol space USA, the first hit will be the USA landing page, which has all the USA entry requirements and things to do with funding and things like that. Or alternatively, you can drop me an email on americas@uwe.ac.uk.
Great, thank you. And Peter, how can people get in touch with you and find out more about Queen's University Belfast?
Well, I see the fine folks at the British Council have posted our website in the chat there, so click on those would be the first thing. If you want to get in touch directly and have a chat, there's two options on that webpage. There's an option to book a chat with me or one of my colleagues in the team, and we can have a Zoom call. Or you can email us at northamerica@qub.ac.uk, and you'll probably get me on the other end. But send us through any questions you have. We'd be happy to talk at any point.
Great. Well, thank you again so much for joining us, and thank you to everyone watching for joining us as well and for submitting your questions in the chat. We really appreciate it. Out of your university search experience, if you're thinking about applying to the UK, and we look forward to being in touch with you. We are running another Facebook Live Q&A tomorrow, so join us back here at the same time tomorrow to find out more about studying in Wales. We hope that you all stay safe and stay well, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.